This is the Louie T Network.
See, first come the preseason, and I don't take a day off. And then my team was 6-10, and we ain't smell the playoffs. Yeah, I seen the Super Bowl, but I heard they just play balls. A lot of teams had injuries. Sam Bradford had to take off. Go hard in the offseason, but you don't know the half. Before you know, we gon' look up, and we ready for the draft. They dressed up in that suit top, and I don't know how to act. They waiting, so patient, so they can put on that hat. Who else could it be? But your man Luke. Okay, so when she asks you where you was at, you tell her you in the lab room. Who else could it be? But your man Luke. Okay, so when she asks where you was at, you can tell her you was in the lab room. Yeah.
Hey yo, who else could it be? Me, your me. Louie T, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Week number 14, International Football League. Hurry, 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 hurry. Up, offense for week 14. Quick whip around of the league's action. And I tell you what, man, before I even jump into the results from the games in week 14, I must say, had a subscriber chime in, and it was one of the guys that routinely steps up to the challenge. I can't recall if it was Eduardo O'Neill or Insane Juggernaut or Sean Hawk or whomever it was. It was one of those guys, and they said, man, this is going to be a crazy week in terms of picks. And I'm like, crazy week? What are you talking about, man? Love my picks this week. I don't know what this guy's talking about. I'm about to blaze them with 12-4, 13-3. What are we talking about here, man? What is this guy talking about? He knew something. Obviously, he knew something that I didn't know, because right now, your man is staring at 8-7 going into Monday night. That's right, I'm staring 500 right in the face if the Dolphins aren't able to get it done. And that was a heart pick. That wasn't a head pick. That was a heart pick. I could easily lose that game on Monday night. They're wearing the throwbacks. They're painting the end zones old school way. I'm hoping that all of those nostalgic things brings this Dolphins team a victory on Monday for various reasons, of course. But this week 14 results and the action that took place, man, that was Michael Orr for me, man. Blindside. I didn't see it coming, man. So let's jump into these games. We're going to start with a couple of blowout victories for some teams and kind of run through and gloss through those ones quickly. Dallas at Green Bay in the 4 o'clock hour. Look, Packers did what they were supposed to do. It's good to see them kind of get back on track. Mike McCarthy took back over the play calling duties. Look, I knew it was only a matter of time before one of the best to do it in the game decided he needed to return to those duties. And we saw a really good balance of run, the screens off of the run game. I thought he took a lot of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers because, again, his receivers aren't winning one-on-one matchups. No need to put him behind that offensive line that isn't protecting as well as it should. So what do? You loosen him up with the run, then you hit him with some screen game, and then you give Aaron Rodgers opportunities to try to pick him apart. That way, I thought the run game was dominant. Eddie Lacy over 100 yards. James Starks, a perfect 1-2 combination. They both were impactful on the ground and in the receiving game. So Packers were able to do some things there on the offensive side. On the defensive side of the football, look, the Cowboys are anemic offensively, and so you knew that the Packers should be able to get well on that side of the ball. Now, they did get gashed a couple of times. Darren McFadden over 100 yards, and really he did most of his damage on 2 runs that got the Cowboys into scoring range, but they had the interception in the end zone on the opening possession for them. Ball tips off of Des Bryant, who had a miserable day, had 3 drops, only 1 catch on 6 targets. He struggled in this game, and so even though they had some opportunities to score some points, they weren't able to do so in the game. Packers clamped down on them and really didn't allow them to do the things that they needed to do to keep this game close, which was really keep the score down. The only way that the Dallas Cowboys are going to beat anyone is by keeping the score relatively low. It's got to be one of those 13, 16, 19, 16 games like they had on Monday night versus the Redskins, Packers started scoring touchdowns. Cowboys couldn't keep pace. 28-7 is your final in this game. Cowboys go to 4-9 on the season. Packers go to 9-4 and take sole possession of first place. They had already done so via the loss by the Vikings on Thursday night, but this one puts them a full game, not a half a game, a full game ahead of the Vikings. Remember, they hold the tiebreaker currently over the Vikings. They meet in Week 17 in Green Bay. That one might be for the division. We will see. New England at Houston. Thought this game was going to go exactly the way that it did. I didn't think that the Texans could compete with the Patriots with Rob Gronkowski back in the lineup. Gronk makes a difference. If you can't tell by now, then shame on you. When he plays, this is a different football team. You take him out of the lineup and they're very vulnerable. He steps into the lineup, first possession, he catches a big ball, sets up a touchdown, and really that was the story of the game. Patriots were able to make plays, get in the end zone, convert and score points. Texans, on the other hand, weren't able to do so. They only were able to amass 2 field goals in this game. J.J. Watt, a non-factor. That broken hand, believe it or not, impacted him. He got it during the week. This was his first game playing with the cast on his hand, and he really felt the effects of not having full range of motion and full ability to grab and rip and pull and tug and shove. And so you couple that with the double and triple teams that he saw all night, which is a Bill Belichick staple. If you have a star player and you're playing against the Patriots, Bill Belichick is going to do his best to take your star player out of the game. They did the same thing with D-Hop, and Nuke was a non-factor in this game. Look, if I'm the Houston Texans, I don't give a damn if they double team Nuke. I'm still throwing the football at least 7, 8, 9, or 10 times in the course of the ball game. Couple of 50-50 balls where you just throw it up and say, hey Nuke, you a hell of a football player, go make a play on 2 dudes. And the Patriots were being really funny with their coverages. They would take a guy, they would show him over the top, and then when the ball was snapped, they would show the cover 2 look where they would have a man 2 with the safety over the top. But then he would bail, and because it was single high safety, he would bail and move away, but it looked at pre-snap like, double coverage. So you would have Brian Hoyer, Billy Ho going away from DeAndre Hopkins. I would have just forced him the football anyway. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Patriots get it done 27-6. There were some more casualties in the form of guys being injured for the Patriots. They lose a couple of players in this game, and they did not return. They lost running back LeGarrette Blount. They lost safety Devin McCourty, and they also lost one of their defensive linemen. And so Dominic Easley in this football game to injury. So we'll see. They continue to just be the walking wounded. Let's see if they can get some of these guys back. But the Patriots do prevail in this game. And it was a big Sunday for them because they came into Sunday's play 3rd place in the AFC standings behind Denver and Cincinnati. Both of those teams lost in Week 14. They win. So at 11-2, they are now your number 1 seed in the AFC. Let's see if they can hold on to that. Meanwhile, the Texans, just like in the NFC East, at 6-7, they still remain tied for the AFC South crown. They've got 3 games remaining. Let's see who prevails. They got a huge one next week at Indy. Let's see who wins that game. The winner of that game probably going to be your winner of the AFC South. We move on to the next game. Atlanta at Carolina. This was a no contest, and really the Falcons were defeated before this game even started. This is a team that has lost 6 out of their last 7, and they've struggled to really maintain the level of play that they had earlier in the season when they started 5-0. And this is one of those classic cases of everything kind of snowballing and things getting out of control, and they just don't know how to stop this slide. And so they came into this game, you were thinking that they need to get off to a fast start in order to have a chance. If they fall behind early to Carolina, this thing is going to get out of control, and that's exactly what happened. They needed that Greg Olsen fumble to be a fumble. It wasn't. Panthers get up on the board early off of a big run by Jonathan Stewart. They turn around, they get a big one to Ted Ginn Jr. Teddy Ballgame strikes again later on again. Got up with a pass interference. He got away with offensive pass interference on the push off on the first touchdown. Doesn't matter. They didn't call that. And so 14-0. They get another strike from Teddy Ballgame deep. And look, he's got suspect hands, but nobody ever said the guy can't run really, really fast in a straight line. Smoked him again. Can't put a linebacker on him with a safety over top and think that's going to be enough to stop Teddy Ballgame from getting loose. Cam hits him. The amount of time in the actual pocket that Cam is standing in back there, ridiculous, man. The offensive line needs to be given credit for what they've done this season to give him the time to deliver the football. It was 21-0 before the end of the first quarter. This game got out of hand quickly. The only somber note for the Carolina Panthers in this game was that their all-world tight end, Greg Olsen, goes down to an injury. Doesn't seem to be serious, but again, you never know with these things. We'll see what happens with his injury and the time frame we're looking at in terms of him being out. But all in all, another dominant performance from the Carolina Panthers. You go to the Falcons side of things, they're just abysmal. Matt Ryan stinks. And I don't know if it's just the play calling and him not really being able to digest. We've heard that a number of times this year from multiple sources that he's having a time and having a little bit of trouble digesting the playbook. I don't know what it is, but he's not playing good football. He had open receivers in this game that he was missing. The pressure was on him. He had outlets that he could dump it down to, and he wasn't getting rid of the football fast enough. One time, one of his receivers, a rookie at that, Justin Hardy, had to bail him out with a one-hand grab because the pass was errant. Matt Ryan is off, and he's struggling, and his team is struggling. He every time he gets hit, it seems like he fumbles the football. K1 Short hits him, knocks the ball back about 20 yards. They recover it, but now it's second and forever. And so that was a scoring opportunity gone by the wayside. They just struggled in this game in every facet imaginable. This team is struggling, and they just don't know how to fix what's wrong. And it's almost really hard to put your finger on one thing. It's so many things that are going wrong right now, but I can put my finger on the biggest problem, and that's Matt Ryan. The defense has played well all season. They didn't play well in this game, but they're getting no help from the offense, and Matt Ryan is the biggest culprit of them all. They lose this game 38-0. You can go ahead and put the Falcons season to rest. They're done. And now that's 6 consecutive losses, and I don't know if they'll win another game this season. They're playing such bad football. We'll see what they're able to do as they drop to 6-7 on the season. Panthers remain undefeated at 13-0. And those guys look poised to go 16-0, run the table. I think their last big test of the season is going to be next week in the Meadowlands versus the Giants. We've seen those guys raise their level of play before. They can do it again. We'll see if the Panthers up for the task on the road versus the Giants in week number 15. Tennessee Titans at the New York Jets. Another blowout. This was my Soul Survivor pick of week number 14. I expected the Jets to dominate the Titans, and that they did. Let's start with the Titans in this game. Tone setting plays for me, and this is the DNA and the makeup of a bad football team right here. I'm just going to explain to you how you get to 3-10 on the season, how you have an interim head coach, and how you'll be looking for a new one at season's end right here. So, first possession defensively, Parrish Cox drops an interception. You always know when you play the Jets, Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to give you at least one opportunity to make a play. Well, Parrish Cox had a chance to make a play on the first possession, dropped the football. A couple plays later, they give up a touchdown to Eric Decker, 7-0. They get the football back. You say, okay, we just gave up a touchdown. Let's respond. Let's answer back. Marcus Mariota, play action fake, throws it to Delaney Walker, their leading receiver on the season. He drops the football. Would have been a gain of 10, 12, maybe even 15. Breaks a tackle, who knows? Could have been a gain of 20, 25, 30. Instead, he drops the football and end up having a punt after 3 and out. And that, to me, was the tone setter for the game. You drop an interception, you give up a touchdown, you drop a first down, have to punt, and the game was never really the same. They didn't want to tackle. Look, this team lacked effort in this game. Bilal Powell catches a pass on 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8. It scurries across the formation, makes a guy miss. 2 defenders there that can make a tackle. Yeah, he's already got the first down, so what? Make the tackle. Neither one of them looked interested. They looked both disinterested. Both looked to have made business decisions. He walks past 3 Titans defenders and gets into the end zone, scores a touchdown. And then they give up another touchdown, 67-yard variety to B. Marsh, because they're not ready. They're not on the field when the Jets get the football and the play is marked, ready to rock and roll. Jets are already on the field in their formation. Titans still on the sidelines. I don't know what the hell's going on. They rush onto the field. They throw the football to B. Marsh to the Jets. He runs down the sidelines, 67-yard touchdown. That's the DNA and the mark of a bad football team. That's how you get to 3-10 if you are the Tennessee Titans. For the Jets, look, they scored in the opening possession. They never looked back. They did what they were supposed to do. You take a very bad team and you get them out of the game right away. Before it was halftime, the score was 27-0. That's what you do to a bad football team. You jump on them early, you jump on them often, and you let them know today's not their day. Chris Ivory's special. There's one play where he gets the football and the defensive end crashes down, and then the safety is coming on the blitz, and they open up this huge cutback lane for him. And most backs in the league don't see that cutback. Most backs in the league don't have the footwork or the balance to get there. He makes a nice jump cut, shuffles his feet, gets to the outside, cuts it back, picks up about a gain of 30. Not only does he have the innate ability and vision to be able to make that move, but he's also one of the most violent and physical runners in the entire league, and that's why Chris Ivory is so special. Bilal Powell looks spry to me. I don't know about you. He looks like he's cut some weight. He looks like a more explosive, dynamic football player for this Jets offense. Not only is he running the football well, I thought he had a really good run where he cut it back about twice against the grain and picked up about 50. I think it was a 21-yard run, his biggest of the season. And then he had the catch. Had a catch, I want to say the last week or the week before, where he catches a little dump off and gets in the end zone. Had another one here. So I think he had one last week against the Giants and had another one in this game where he scores. Bilal Powell looks refreshed, he looks rejuvenated, and he's a weapon for this offense. B. Marsh and Eric Dagger, to me, it might be the best 1-2 punch in the league at the wide receiver position. Those guys are just electric. They're scoring touchdowns. They're a handful to deal with. Both of them 6'3" or better. I mean, they're just one of the most punishing wide receiver duos in the league, and they continue to do that in this game, both scoring a touchdown here. And Buster Screen made a phenomenal play, and this is why, and a huge example of why this Jets defense is so good. So he's rushing on a blitz, and he realizes the back is coming out of the backfield, and he's not going to make it to the quarterback in time. So instead of him blitzing the quarterback, he runs right into the running back, slows him up, then runs with the running back, takes him off of his route. The quarterback, thinking that the running back's going to leak out against this all-out blitz and pressure, it's going to be wide open. Buster Screen throws him off his route, and then the ball comes right to Buster Screen, picks it off, gives the Jets an opportunity to get more points, and they do. That's why this defense is good. They make plays. They do things that other defenses don't. Your end result, 30-8 win. Jets stay in the AFC playoff race as they remain one of the wild cards with this win, going to 8-5 on the season. Meanwhile, the Titans continue their dreadful season at 3-10. A lot of things that they have to improve upon, and we'll see what happens with them in the offseason. Move on to the next game, Indianapolis at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a big surprise for me because I thought Matthew Hasselbeck had enough left in the tank to go on the road and get one more win for them against this Jaguars football team. I was wrong really bad. This was the ass whooping of the day. Let's talk about the Colts quickly. DeQuell Jackson has been just outstanding for this team all season long. He leads them in tackles. Coming into this game, he led the NFL in tackles. He's a guy that will pick off passes. We saw the huge interception he had that changed the game against the Falcons and helped them win that ball game. He's just everywhere. Had a chance to pick off a pass earlier in this game, didn't do it, but he's everywhere, man. He makes tackles, makes calls, he makes plays. DeQuell Jackson, I didn't think they were going to get this much good play out of him when he came from Cleveland. I said, you might get a year, maybe two of good, solid play out of DeQuell Jackson coming from Cleveland. This guy's been phenomenal, and this is his third year in Indy, I believe, and he's still playing at a really high level. They settled for too many field goals in this game, and there were so many big plays to T.Y. Hilton in the first half. You needed to get in the end zone. You needed to put the pressure on Jacksonville. Jacksonville was struggling early in this ball game. At the point where this game changed, it was 13-3. Colts were up. You felt comfortable about where you were in the game. You had prime field position to go get more points. If you had turned just one of those field goals into touchdowns, and we're talking about a 17-3 game at that point, it's a different ball game. It's a different dynamic. Instead, you settle for a slew of field goals, 3 field goals, only 1 touchdown. And to me, that wasn't the difference, because a lot of the mistakes that you made and some of the plays that Jacksonville Jaguars ultimately made was the difference in this game. But your only touchdown came off of a turnover. You weren't even able to get into the end zone offensively, and that's where this team struggled in this game. Matthew Hasselbeck's 40-year-old body ran out of gas. And to me, that's simply what happened in this game. You got all you could get out of him. He gave you all the mileage he had left in his tank. But at the end of the day, he's 40. And I told you that I thought he was done before the season started. So kudos to Matthew Hasselbeck for keeping this thing afloat in the absence of Andrew Luck, because I didn't think he had it in him personally. And he went out, won you 4 ball games, gave you everything he had, but that man is officially out of gas. That tank is on empty, and it cannot be refilled. He ended up leaving this game. He was hurt, took a shot right before running out of bounds on a scramble. And again, you put him behind that porous offensive line, and you have him having to run for his life, and you have to scramble on this particular play. Telvin Smith shoves him out of bounds. He falls down on his shoulder. We already knew he was coming into the game with a bum neck and shoulder from the stinger he suffered against the Steelers. And so it all kind of fell apart after that. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a talented team when healthy. I've been praising the Jaguars and the draft selections and the amount of talent that they have on this football team. It's just that they aren't healthy often enough and they don't know how to win. You combine those two things together and you lose a lot of football games in this league. But when they have all of their stuff, you look at, you got Marquise Lee, you got the Allen brothers, you got Juice out there, you got Rashad Green. There's so much talent. TJ Yeldon. This is a young, talented football team. Luke Jokel at left tackle. You got AJ Khan in the draft. I mean, you got talent everywhere on this football team. It is oozing out of every nook and cranny. Zane Beatles. There are talented football players everywhere. And so you look at this football team and the way it's constructed, and you say, if you guys could just stay healthy, learn how to win together, this is a dangerous football team for years to come. And so you saw it kind of manifest itself in this game. Now, consistency is the key, but Blake B was struggling early in this game, okay? He had a bad decision on the throw that I talked about with DeQuell Jackson having a chance to pick it off early in the game, first possession. Luckily enough for him, went through his hands and it ended up in the hands somehow of Clay Harbor, but that was a bad decision, bad throw, and it should have been picked off. Got away with one there. Then he fumbles the football in the end zone. It was a bad snap. The snap could have been handled, but it had a lot of hot sauce on it to go. Okay, you don't expect a guy when you're backed up in your own end zone to have that much hot sauce on the snap. It was hot. It was high. Blake didn't handle it well. It went into the end zone, recovered by Robert Mathis. Second week in a row, the Jaguars have had a bad snap result in a touchdown for the opposition, and so that's got to stop. They cannot continue to do that and give away points. Luckily, that it didn't hurt them in this game, but it hurt them last week in that shootout versus the Tennessee Titans. But he also fumbled the football. They were driving right before the half, looking to get some points. He gets hit. Ball is popped loose. It's recovered by Gathers, the safety for the Indianapolis Colts. Ran into Jaguars territory. Looks like it's 13-3 at that point. Looks like the Colts are going to get some more points off of this turnover. It looks like it's going to be another one of these Colts victories in the division on the road versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then the play of the game happened. It changed the total complexion of this game. Andre Branch comes off the edge. They said they wanted more pressure from the Leo position. Well, they got it. He knocks the football out of Matthew Hasselbeck's hand, scoops and scores it from about 60 yards out. And that play, to me, changed the complexity of this game. Goes from 13-3, and Colts were going to get some more points, whether it be a Vinatieri field goal or a touchdown, and go up 16-3 or possibly 20-3 after half. Instead, turns around, it's 13-9. They missed the extra point, but Blake had his head down on the sidelines. He was distraught after the fumble. I told you he was struggling early in the ball game. That was a pick-me-up. You know, one of the coaches went over, hit him on the chest, said, hey, we good. We just got a turnover. Get your head in the game. And after that, everything changed. Blake throws the 80-yard touchdown strike to Allen Hurns, who just came back from the concussion. Good to see him back out there running around. And those boys, Allen Robinson with a touchdown grab, man. Those boys out there, man, jump man. Them boys up to something, man. And they out there doing it up big in J-Ville. You get Juice with a touchdown grab, and I told you, this is a talented team. Rashad Green punt return for a touchdown. It all came together. The Jags even got greedy in this game, ran the score. That's how you know they've been downtrodden for so long. They get an opportunity, they're like, nah, we putting a 50 burger up today. Because in most NFL stadiums, you're already up 44-16, and it's fourth down and goal from the 1. You're just gonna kick a field goal. There's no reason to pour more salt in the wound. Those boys not only had Blake B in the game, they went for it and had him quarterback sneak it on fourth down, jump over the top, and stretch the football over the goal line. They wanted that 50 burger. They said, oh, this is for all the times you beat us in a row. We giving it to you, and we giving it to you in the worst way possible. 51-16. Don't look now. But the Jags are not out. And I asked this question about 3 weeks ago when they won that game that they had no business winning. I forget who the opponent was, but they won the game, and I said, why not the Jags? I mean, seriously. They got Atlanta at the crib next week. We saw what Atlanta did in Carolina this week. Why can't they beat Atlanta next week At New Orleans, that's a winnable game. At Houston, why not? The Jags. At 5-8, they're one game out of first place. They got to play one of the teams that is currently in front of them in the Houston Texans. You just beat the other team that's in front of you in the Indianapolis Colts. Look, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, why not the Jags? Duval! That's all I'm saying. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. This one hurt my heart because, you know, I'm a Steelers dude through and through. You know how I feel about the Steelers. I love their talent. I love Ben Roethlisberger. I love their ability to score. I just love the Pittsburgh Steelers because I love Mike Tomlin. And that's what it all boils down to. I'm a Mike Tomlin dude. Like, Michael Vick's on that team, Mike Tomlin, both of those dudes are from the 7 cities. I'm just a Pittsburgh Steelers Mike Tomlin dude. So I've always admired how the Steelers have organized and run their business from afar. I love the Rooney. So I got an affinity for the Steelers. And I wanted to pick them in this game, but I didn't. And I said, my heart says Pittsburgh, but my head says Cincinnati. And so I went that way. Let's jump into this one. I thought the Steelers set the tone early in the game with the Stephon Tuitt interception, and that proved to be a big play in more ways than one. And at the time, we thought it was just an interception. We didn't know that Andy Dalton would break his thumb on that same play and really would impact and alter the outcome of this game drastically. But that was a tone setter to me, as well as the scuffle before the game, getting in the face of Vontaze Burfict, and I thought that was huge because it got the Cincinnati Bengals out of their game. And now, instead of them trying to play to win the game, they were trying to play to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers and not beat them on the field on the scoreboard, but beat them physically. They wanted to out-tough them and show them that they weren't scared. And so they had already won half of the battle right there, and I thought the Steelers came in, got the Cincinnati Bengals outside of their comfort zone, and they were able to get this one. I thought the offense played mistake-free football. They didn't do a lot of extraordinary things offensively in this game, but Ben Roethlisberger spread the football around. It was Heath Miller with 8 catches in the first half. It was Antonio Brown with about 2 or 3 catches. You had Marcus Wheaton with like 4 or 5 catches, and then you had Big Ten with like 6 catches in the first half. They were spreading the football around judiciously to their playmakers, and they weren't doing anything earth-shattering, but they weren't making any mistakes, which is a far cry from the first meeting in Pittsburgh where Ben Roethlisberger turned it over 3 or 4 times. So they did all of the little things. They made the plays, and the defense, feast or famine defense in Pittsburgh right now. They're either making a bunch of plays and being opportunistic, like they were in this game, 3 interceptions, one of them a pick 6 to the crib, or they're giving up points like they did against Seattle, and they're losing ball games. So this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that I'm still trying to figure out defensively, but the offense did what I expected them to do. They made sure that when they got opportunities, they either put a field goal up or they put a touchdown up. And that's what the good football teams do. Cincinnati in this game, to me, the injuries were the major story and the major takeaway from this game. You lose Andy Dalton to a fractured thumb, and we don't really know what the timetable is for him. He's probably going to miss the rest of the regular season, most likely, and that could be huge. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Tyler Eifert leaves the game early on. We're talking first, second possession of the game with a concussion, and we know how those can really be really iffy. You really don't know how long the guy's going to be out with concussion. It could be 1 week. He could be ready for the game next week against San Francisco, or he could be out for the rest of the regular season. These concussions are really tricky. You don't really know how these things are going to play out. And then Vontaze Burfict, arguably your heart and soul of your defense. The guy was limping around all game on the sidelines. He just wants to play football, but he couldn't get out there because he was banged up. So I don't know the severity of that injury either, but these injuries are huge for a team that's vying for a top spot in the AFC postseason. I thought they allowed, and I kind of documented this already, thought they allowed Pittsburgh to get into their heads before the game even started. Pac-Man Jones, or excuse me, the cornerback formerly known as Pac-Man Jones, Adam Jones, came out and had an Instagram post where he was talking about, you know, the Steelers are bitches, and, you know, they not hard and they not tough, F them, and this, that, and third, and they were already in here. They were already here. Steelers had already done their job before the game even got started. They missed opportunities, did the Cincinnati Bengals. The opportunities that they were able to take advantage of in the first game, picking off Ben Roethlisberger, making things happen, they missed those opportunities. Sean Williams, golden opportunity to pick Ben Roethlisberger off right around the goal line to stop a scoring opportunity, drops the football, and still end up getting points out of that possession. And those are the type of plays you got to make if you want to win. They had opportunities to go to the halftime break 7-13 after the big play from A.J. McCarron to A.J. Green. You're thinking, okay, yeah, they right back in this ball game. They let the Steelers go right down the field and get a field goal right before the halftime break to extend it out to a 2-possession game. And then right out of the gate in the second half, A.J. McCarron throws the pick. So you're thinking, okay, cool, they got the field goal. Let's go down and get something, a field goal, touchdown, anything. If not points, at least flip field position, give our defense a chance to pin them deep and make them punt up the football and give us good field position. Whatever you got to do with A.J. McCarron in the game, he throws the pick six right out of the gate in the second half. And to me, that pretty much put this game on ice. Steelers are now still lurking in this division. And I know it's still a 2-game cushion, but you gotta look over your shoulder now. Now, they weren't even in the rearview mirror before this game. Now, all of a sudden, you gotta look over your shoulder because there's no Andy Dalton. And yeah, you're going to San Francisco next week. Guess what? San Francisco plays good football at home. They're garbage on the road, but they play good football at home. You're gonna be in for the fight of your life next week. And it would not shock me if San Francisco stood up and bit you next week. And the Steelers are playing outstanding football right now. You got Denver after that. Peyton Manning's probably going to be back. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that defense with A.J. McCarron at quarterback, you're going to turn it over at least 2 or 3 times in that ball game. So, man, the Steelers are now lurking. It'd be a damn shame if you lost the division because of this game, because of the injuries and the loss itself. Man, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, Steelers go into Cincinnati for the second year in a row, late in the season, and drub the Cincinnati Bengals 33-20. Steelers now 8-5 on the season, still on the outside, looking in the AFC playoff race. Cincinnati 10-3, still leading this division, but now things have gotten a lot tighter in that division, and they're now going to be staring at the prospects of not having their all-world quarterback, Andy Dalton, their leader, Andy Dalton, for the remainder of this season. Buffalo Bills at the Philadelphia Eagles. Huge game for both teams. Bills came to the game at 6-6. Eagles came into the game at 5-7. Eagles vying for a NFC East division crown. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills just looking to stay relevant in the AFC wildcard chase. For the Bills, too many penalties. That's been the story of this football team all season long. Undisciplined. They're one of the most undisciplined teams I've seen in a long time. They do a lot of things that make you scratch your head. A lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of post-snap penalties where you're talking about after the play is taking place and they're hitting the guy late, personal foul, roughing the passer, late hit out of bounds, guys losing their cools. That's the Buffalo Bills right there. And so they lead the league in defensive pass interference penalties, and some of that can be attributed to the aggressive nature of Rex Ryan and blitzing and being in man-to-man coverage and panicking. And so there's just too many penalties on a Bills team that can't afford to have those type of mistakes because they're not good enough to do that. The injury to Charles Clay hurt because, to me, their offense is feast or famine. Either Tyrod Taylor is hooking up with somebody deep or they got a punt. I don't see the Bills going on 13 plays, 72-yard, 5-minute, 47-second drives very often. It's usually Tyrod Taylor hooking up with Samuel Watkins, or when Percival Harvin was healthy, or Charles Clay, or 7-Eleven, or whomever. In this game, a lot of big plays for Robert Woods. He's usually going up top with somebody. Goodwin, when he was healthy, you would hit him over the top. But you got to be able to matriculate the football down the field, pick up first downs, keep drives alive, other than using your legs. And so I thought they struggled in that capacity in this football game. And I thought the Charles Clay injury really helped contribute to that. Great play by Leotis McKelvin on the interception right by the goal line. Eagles were driving for points. And at that point in the game, you couldn't afford to give it up. And he goes and takes the football away from the tight end. I thought it was a gorgeous play by Leotis McKelvin. I actually thought he had a really good ball game, speaking of which. But this defense still isn't where it needs to be, though. And despite forcing that turnover, you give up the big play to Zach Ertz late in the game where I honestly thought that was maybe offensive pass interference. They've been so tough and really being stringent on that this season and making a point of emphasis and making that call. And to see Huff go in and blow up the safety that was covering the tight end on the play, a little questionable. I don't know if you could actually say he meant to do that or not, but just looked a little iffy to me. Either way, you still had a chance to tackle him for like an 8-yard gain. You allow him to bounce off of one guy, stiff arm the snot out of another, and next thing you know, this guy's picked up, 35 yards on the play that should have went for, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards at the most. And so this defense is still struggling, man. And it's very disappointing because we know how good this defense was last year. Relatively same parts, new coaching staff, and everything just seems a little out of whack. You go to the Eagles, I thought some players stepped up for him in this game. Nelson Aguilar, good to see the rookie getting involved. Big touchdown grab. You got Fletcher Cox, who's playing out of his mind this season. And look, he's been really consistent throughout his career, and a lot of people haven't been paying attention, but you can't ignore, and really I think his entire defensive line and him and his mates have been playing outstanding football this season, but Cox to me is the best of that group, and he continues to play outstanding football. Zach Ertz, monster game for Zach Ertz. I just talked about the big play at the game and set up the game-winning field goal. He was huge in this game. Bradford, aside from the interception, thought he was solid. He even used his legs in this game. So I thought he didn't do anything spectacular. The throw to Aguilar was beautiful. Stepped up in the pocket, avoided a rush, and let it rip and hit him right in stride for the touchdown. But I thought he was really solid, and that's what they're going to need from him moving forward, is for him to make the plays when they're there. And when it's not, tuck in and run, get something, and keep this offense on schedule. Defense wasn't great, okay, but they used the Bills' mistakes, all those penalties that I alluded to earlier, and great special teams to keep them pinned in their own territory. It seemed like for the entire second half, the Bills were playing from the shadow of their own goal line and own end zone, and they just weren't able to really get anything going. Every time they would get a nice gain, a chunk of yards, they had some kind of penalty. Shady McCoy had a nice cutback run where he cut against the grain twice and got about 20 yards on the play. Got called back for a penalty. Tyrod Taylor completes a nice pass, penalty. They just couldn't get out of their own way, and the Eagles made sure they stayed trapped in their own territory for much of the second half. Look, at the end of the day, the Eagles, to me, they made the plays to win the game. They made the winning plays when they needed to be made. Ertz with the catch and run to set up the field goal, and Ed Reynolds the second with the interception late to seal it. I just thought the Eagles made the plays when they had to be made, and the Bills didn't, and that's how the Eagles got their 6th win of the season, 23-20. Bills fall to 6-7. Eagles improved to 6-7, and for the Bills, that's a crushing loss. They look like they're fading fast in the AFC playoffs, and we know how many good teams are over there at 8-5. At 6-7, they're pretty much cooked in the AFC. Meanwhile, the Eagles stay tied for first place and in the NFC East, pending the Giants result on Monday. These two guys, them and the Redskins, could be vying for that top spot next week in a huge game, or 2 weeks from now. Eagles have the Cardinals. That's going to be a huge game for them next week in Philly. But the week after that, Redskins coming to town. That could be for first place in the NFC East. So we'll see. Big win for the Eagles at home versus the Bills as they improve to 6-7 on the season. San Diego Superchargers taking on the Chiefs. Big matchup for the Chiefs. They're riding a huge 6-game winning streak, playing outstanding football, are the Kansas City Chiefs. San Diego struggling. They just want this season to be over. Let's talk about them first in this game. They squandered an opportunity early on a fumble that they forced on a punt return from Frankie Hammond Jr. Did recover that fumble deep in Chiefs territory. Had to settle for a field goal, and then they missed that field goal. That's the type of season it's been for San Diego. They get an opportunity to get some points early in this ball game, and they can't take advantage of it. And that's where this team is right now. They're a shell of themselves, okay? They've got some guys that I think are some building blocks on this team. Jason Barrett with an interception in this game. You look at Denzel Perryman, he had a huge stop on the third down, knifing in the backfield. He had 15 tackles last week. I mean, you got some playmakers on this defense. You know how I feel about some of these players. I think Melvin Gordon's going to be just fine at the running back position. A lot of people have been coming down hard on him. I think he's going to be just fine on this football team. There's some stuff here. I love LG, Darius Green at the tight end position, but this team is a shell of themselves, and that drop by M80 to me is indicative of where this team is. Phillip Rivers escapes the pocket, looks up, sees a wide open M80 down the field. Michael Floyd drops the football. Malcolm Floyd drops the football. It doesn't get much easier than that. It was a miserable day. Conditions were not ideal, but got to catch that football, and he did not catch it. And so that's the type of day it was for San Diego. As we go on to the Chiefs, they made a bunch of mistakes that kept this ball game much closer than it had to be. Let's talk about their first half mistakes. Penalty on a punt return. Early in the game, Frankie Hammond Jr. has a huge return into San Diego Chargers territory. They have a penalty on that, brings it all the way back. He fumbles, and I talked about that already. He fumbles deep in Kansas City Chiefs territory, turning it over to the Chargers, who then had an opportunity to score, but squandered that opportunity. Then they had a bunch of penalties in general, and that's a team that doesn't hurt themselves with penalties on a regular basis, but they hurt themselves in this ball game. A bunch of penalties in the first quarter, and throughout the game, I just thought they were heavily penalized. And again, this is a team that isn't penalized very often, so that was surprising to see. Second half mistakes. Cairo Santos misses a field goal. It was a poor snap, but he missed the kick. Then you got a Travis Kelce penalty on a touchdown for West, your running back, on the screen, and you're just like, what? I mean, it was that type of day for Kansas City. A lot of mistakes, it really hurting them. Alex Smith throws his first interception, and that streak is over. Dun, 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 dun. Captain Chapter! That streak is over. The most pass attempts without an interception in Chiefs history. It was fun while it lasted, but it's done. Jason Verrett picks him off on a deep ball. And it only fitting that Captain checked down, try to stretch it out deep to Jeremy Maclin, and gets picked off. That's him stepping out of his comfort zone, and so he had to pay for that. But Albert Wilson was huge in this game on the offensive side. The only touchdown scored in the game on a slant where everyone, and I mean everybody from San Diego, was up to the line of scrimmage, and he beat the defender on the slant, able to break the tackle, get into the end zone for the lone touchdown of the game. And then on the opposite side of the field, defensively, huge game for D Ford. I thought he was magnificent in this game. 3 sacks, and a career high for him, obviously. And the game-saving play in the end zone on Danny Whitehead. It's got to be a luxury to have one of your explosive pass rushers be able to drop into coverage and run with one of the most dynamic playmakers out of the backfield in the league in Danny Woodhead. And he was able to match up with him one-on-one on a route up the sideline into the end zone and knock the football away. Great play by D Ford. He had a magnificent game. This was a team win. It wasn't pretty, but again, in this league, a win's a win in the National Football League. And sometimes it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be gritty. But they got that W, put another one in the left-hand column. Chiefs get it done 10-3. You know what this felt like at the end? And Chiefs fans can probably attest to this. Felt like, was it last year when Phillip Rivers scored 2 touchdowns in like the final, 50 seconds to beat you guys in a game that you dominated? It might have been 2 seasons ago. Either way, it felt like that. He kept converting 4th and 10 after 4th and 10 after 4th and 10, and you just had that feeling like he's about to tie this game up, isn't he? Like, I felt that way. I don't know about you, I felt that way, but it wasn't meant to be. The Chiefs made the plays down in the red zone when they had to, inside the 5. And the Chargers self-destructed down there. They had a delayed game penalty at the 1, after a timeout, okay? How do you do that? I don't understand. And then they had another penalty. Man, it was a rough day for Chris Harrison, man. Wow, did he struggle at left tackle. But that's what his team is. I talked about them being a shell of themselves. Too many injuries. King Dunlap left the game, and that really hurt them. They've been banged up along the offense. They've just been banged up in general. Chiefs get it done 10-3. Move to 8-5. Remain a wild card team in the AFC playoff picture at 8-5. Meanwhile, the Chargers at 3-10 are vying for that number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. That's going to do it for part 1 of the hurry up offense. See you for part 2. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In The Lab Room. That's In The Lab Room on Facebook and at In The Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.